Hello and welcome to the Daily Dose of Safety. Dr. Charlie Cartwright here. So it's been a tough week for the aviation industry, for sure. And anytime there's a loss of life, it's always sad because it impacts all of us, either directly or indirectly. And definitely, whether we knew anyone involved or not, it just hits home because we're all so connected on this planet as human beings. So really feel sad about the events that happened, and then also want to learn whatever lessons are possible and applicable so that we can prevent these types of things from happening in the future. And also, I think there's opportunity for learning, even though this may be outside of our industry. And that's my first point is I think as safety professionals, we've got to stretch outside of our industry and learn things from other industries that we can then apply to what we do each and every day. And I have a cousin that's in the aviation industry. She worked for flight safety for many years, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company, and then was recruited to go to work in the safety department for Southwest Airlines, and that's where she's at now. And just we've had some opportunities and occasions to have lengthy conversations. And I love just gaining that perspective from the aviation industry because it's very different from the industries that I've worked in. And there are certain things that are hypercritical, right? And they can't afford to get wrong. They can't afford to make mistakes in because when they do, then there's a massive loss of life. So, which we witnessed this past week. And I know one of the things um, that I that I've learned from her is I would talk about things like I remember being in transportation industry and we do a pre-trip inspection on our vehicle and talked about that as a safety protocol. And it is. She says, however, it's a little more critical at 40,000 feet because we can't just pull over, right? If something's is going wrong. So it's so important that when we pre-trip, it's critical that we get that right because once we get up there, it's a lot harder to make these adjustments. And so just that alone, right? Like even though we're on the ground, how critical do we take um, those morning conversations, those toolbox talks, those tailgates, and they need to be meaningful and taken very seriously because again, a misstep can lead to a tragedy. Maybe not on this magnitude, but it can definitely lead to a tragedy. The other thing it made me think about this week is just we know about the human element and how we have to really make sure that we're connecting with people and getting through and they have the training they need in order to be successful and that they're applying that training on a daily basis. They have the equipment they need to be successful. But also there's that element of, engineering hazards out whenever possible. Are we doing that whenever possible? Why put ourselves or our people in a position of an unnecessary risk? And so again, with this, one of the things that's coming out is this flight path of these helicopters. It was normal, it was part of their training. They've been doing it for years. However, it's been a concern for years. And they've had a near miss as recently as the last week, if not days, before this fatal incident. And so just altering the flight path of those helicopters, the helicopter is is another mile upwind, then the altitude differences are significant enough to where it's not even an issue, right? But with that current flight path, and I believe they suspended that flight path now, that the altitude differences are close enough to where we had near misses and then we had this fatality. So why not engineer that out of the equation so it's not that height, that altitude is not even an issue with the helicopter versus the plane coming in on approach. And so, it's simple from, to, I guess, outside looking in, it makes sense, right? But sometimes we're so close to something and we've been successful for so long doing it a certain way that it's easy to overlook the obvious sometimes. And that's an obvious engineering issue where, it's not critical that that helicopter take another 30 minutes, or maybe you're adding another 45 minutes to the trip. I don't know what it is, but it'd be inconsequential considering the risk that came to fruition this past week. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see what the final investigation comes out and the lessons that come out. But we all know, whether it's NTSB, whether it's OSHA, those regulations, many of those regulations, too many of those regulations are written in blood, right? And so anytime that we can engineer something out of the equation, we're preventing that outcome from even being a part of things. And that's really important, that anytime that we engineer these things out and give our people an opportunity to fail safely, right? And that's why aircraft don't fly over mountain ranges anymore. They used to, but if something went wrong, there's no safe place to land. So now we're flying around mountain ranges because we fly around them, then it gives the pilots an opportunity, that aircraft an opportunity to fail safely. Whereas if you're flying over a mountain range, there's no opportunity for that if something goes wrong. So think about that as you go through your week. Is there opportunities to engineer risk out? Is there opportunity to create an environment where people can fail safely? And if so, let's create that. Let's engineer those things out of the equation. And through doing that, we'll create a safer work environment. The last thing I'll leave you with is this. And it's something I found in Google a couple of years ago, and I've been talking about it ever since. And I say a couple of years ago, that means probably 4 or 5, because time just seems to go quicker than I realize at times. But if you Google, right, and so you go to Google's, if you go to the Google search engine and you type in Google corporate homepage, click on that, and you'll get some options there. And I believe it's the fourth option down. It says things we know to be true. And so it's on Google's corporate website, and it's 10 things they know to be true. And they have a top 10 list there. But number 10 really applies to safety. It applies to a lot of things, but I think it really hits home with safety. And number 10 says great's just not good enough. It's a starting point. And that's something that Google lives by. And I think as safety professionals, that's something we need to live by. Great's just not good enough. It's a starting point. And, even though we haven't had a major accident as far as aviation in the United States since 2001, that's a great record. But as we found out, a few days ago, not good enough. For all those families affected, communities, people, not good enough. Not good enough. So we got to go beyond great in this industry. And I'm hoping that we'll never have another one of those incidents in my lifetime. And I plan on being around for another 40 years. So maybe every 50 years, getting it to that point where it's every 50, a once in a lifetime incident. And even that is too much, but it'd be much better than where we're at. So that's my message for today. I hope this finds you well. And until next time, take care.